Welcome to JMC Live, where we share the good news of Jesus Christ because we believe the truth will set you free. Tonight, we will be having my wife, Miranda Caverley, to share her testimony here on JMC Live. You can say hi to her. She's on screen now. And we're ready to start from the beginning. This will be an interesting story for a lot of women that I know that follow the ministry. Some are as young as 9, some are as old as 80 something years of age. Some of you will be able to relate to some of the stories of abuse, bullying that she went through as a student at various schools throughout Ohio. And you'll learn how she met her ex-husband and how that relationship turned towards the demonic. And then to end on a positive note, you will learn how Miranda and I met and where is Miranda headed for the future. So Miranda, I'd like to thank you for sharing your testimony on the show tonight. I hand the mic over to you.
Thank you, honey. This has been something we've talked about since we started the show. When would it be a good time to share my testimony? It is something that has taken me 10 years to finally completely share in the public eye. And it is something that is will at times be heart-wrenching and at times very hard to listen to, as many of my friends and family have said over the years, as I revealed little by little the abuse I endured. I was born and raised in Chillicothe, Ohio in 1981 to the parents of Christian parents. My father is a minister. My mom was a Sunday school teacher. My parents sang in church. I actually was in church before I was ever even born. When I was in my mother's womb, my parents were singing in church, traveling and singing around the area we lived. And when I was born, they instilled in me the talents of music and ministry. And at the age of 3, I started playing the drums. And since 3, I have dedicated myself and my life to learning the drums and to play music for God, only for God. I have never played music for a band, a secular band, or anything. It's always been for church or church events. And so growing up, I was in a loving Christian home, and at the age of 12, my parents decided to get a divorce. Tragically, my sister and I were caught in the middle of this, and it took a toll on everybody. But still, my parents were devoted to God, and even though they went their own ways, they still raised us in a Christian home. And when I was in school, I was I was a very quiet child. I wasn't really outgoing. I was outgoing at certain times when you get to know me, I would be outgoing. But I was very shy at first. And due to that, I was bullied continuously from first grade until my sophomore year in high school. I endured the most abuse when I was in junior high. In statistics today, it shows that most students who are bullied in middle school and junior high, and I will tell you that is absolutely true. That is when most of my horrible bullying and harassing went on. To kind of give you an idea of what I went through, 3 years ago, just before Jeremy and I got married, I happened to run into my old 6th grade teacher when I was buying different supplies, different things for mine and Jeremy's wedding with my grandparents. Now, my grandparents had always heard me tell what had happened to me in 6th grade and junior high and so on, but they had never actually seen anybody actually tell them how bad it was. And I was standing in at Walmart, and Walmart sometimes has Subway shops and a little restaurant there. And we were waiting in line to get a sub, and I looked over and there was this lady standing there, and I thought, she looks really familiar. And I looked at her, and I'm just the type of person I'll say, you look really familiar. I think I know who you are. And when I said that, she goes, well, I should. I was your teacher. And it was my 6th grade teacher. And she looks at me, and then she looks at my grandparents. And with the most serious look, she says, you know, the one thing I always remember about Miranda is, and when she said that, I thought, oh, she's going to talk about how nice, because I was a good student. I wasn't a troublemaker or anything. And so I thought she was going to say something pleasant. But what she said it brought my grandparents to tears, and it just sent chills down my spine. She said, the main thing I always remember about Miranda is how those kids bullied her and harassed her. And I never could understand why. Miranda was such a good student. And she started tearing up. I remember this was 6th grade, and I was 26 now. I'm 26, and I had that teacher when I was 12 years old. And she says the main thing I remember about Miranda all these years later is how I was so bullied and harassed and hazed by these kids in my class. And she said, I don't understand why they treated her that way. Miranda never did anything to anybody. She was such a good little girl. And that's why I never understood it. And I could never get those kids to leave her alone. Now, for my parents and my grandparents to hear that, that just brought them to tears. And it was very hard on them to really stand there for the first time and actually hear somebody who witnessed my abuse say how bad it really was. And my abuse after 6th grade even got worse than that the teacher didn't know. But I hugged my 6th grade teacher, and I thanked her for remembering me. And I told her how much, better things have gotten in my life from when she last remembered. And she was happy that I was getting married and that I had made something of myself. The other part of my abuse that was more prevalent was the teachers. It wasn't always the students, it was the teachers. And I can tell you one teacher in junior high pulled me in front of a whole class of students, which was over 30 children, told me to my face I would never amount to anything in my life. Another time at a parent-teacher conference, when my parents were saying about telling them all the different things I was going through because my parents were getting divorced and everything, and the different stresses and the different problems we were facing, the teacher actually laughed in my parents' face of how I was struggling. And my father, for the first time, sat up and said, "Buddy, you either wipe that grin off your face or I'm going to do it for you." So that gives you a little bit of a hint how much of a struggle life for me was as a child growing up. But I did make it through, and I made it to high school. And in my junior year of high school, I transferred from that school and went to, some say it would be considered a secondary school, or what would you call it, Jeremy? What did you call it?
Alternative.
An alternative school. But here we call it a vocational school. I graduated from my regular high school, but I went to this school and got kind of on-hands training, how to do a particular, almost like a pre-college thing. I was 16 at the time, and the year before that, when I was 15, I started playing drums professionally in church. Actually, not exactly professionally, but I started playing in church and getting my feet wet that way. And I was at a particular church here in Ohio, and I made some friends with some of the teens that were attending there. This is where I met this older teen. He was about 18, 19 years old. I was 16, and he was dating my friend, who at the time was 15. She was a year younger than me. Anyway, they were dating, and I began dating another boy from the church, and this was my first boyfriend. Never had a boyfriend, never been kissed or anything. I'm 16 years old, and we had been friends, and so the night that we kind of said, well, let's start dating. My mind's thinking, oh, when we date, we'll hold hands, we'll kiss once in a while, and we'll spend time together, go to movies, so, go to church together. And what he had in mind was something totally different. So my first encounter with a boyfriend sitting alone was he starts basically molesting me. I start freaking out. I don't know what he's doing. He puts his hand down my pants, and he said, "Oh, this is what everybody does. This is what all boyfriend and girlfriends do. They do this." In the back of my mind, something's screaming, "No, this isn't right." And we only dated 2 months because of the fact that he kept pressuring me to have sex. He kept pressuring me farther and farther to do things that I didn't want to do. And I finally told him, I said, when I was in a particular situation where I was afraid he was going to have sex with me, I said, I don't want to do this. I want to wait till I'm married. I'm 16 years old, and I'm being placed in a situation where I was nearly raped. And he says, fine, okay. 2 days later, he calls me. He says, I don't want nothing to do with you anymore. And so that was my first experience with a boyfriend. And so that, pretty much traumatized me. I didn't know what I'd done wrong, and then I realized, well, I didn't give it up. That's what I did wrong. I didn't do what he wanted me to do. I stuck to what I knew God wanted me to do, and he didn't want me. So I had felt like I was abandoned by my father, and now I was abandoned by this guy who was supposed to be my friend and wanted to be with me, but he abandoned me because I wouldn't do something that was against my beliefs. And do you want to take a break, Jeremy? Okay.
We'll be taking a break, and when Miranda comes back, she'll be sharing more of her relationships and different things that she's gone through right here on JMC Live. Be right back.